That's your syllabus, and that is your reading. Done? Everyone? Okay. The nature of state. I would be using two abbreviations here. R for religion, P for politics. There was a time in history when religion protected politics. That period is called ancient India. There was a time in history when religion protected politics. It was called the ancient Indian period. The society began to progress, and a very significant change happened. Religion and politics began to drift apart. This period is the time when Islam comes to India. We call it medieval. By the third phase of evolution, the circle of religion and circle of politics drifted completely apart. After all, the politics was defined by a book called the Constitution. This is the modern period. There was stark shift in these three time periods. Right now, our concentration has to be here. Ancient. In ancient period, as I said, it was religion that protected politics, which means that the Raja is upholding religion, and from religion comes his politics. The best example of this is Ashoka's Dhamma. Ashok made his policy according to the Buddhist philosophy of Dhamma. Religion defined politics. We can have a mythological example also. Ram is considered to be Maryada Purushottam. Ram is Maryada Purushottam because he is in his Maryada, and the Maryada is defined according to the Dharma. But we are here somewhere. Our discussion begins with early medieval. The time period is 750 CE. In this time period, the circle of politics and religion is exactly opposite of ancient India, which means there is no Ram anymore. There is no Ashok anymore. In fact, you are so corrupt that you are trying to define your means with religion. So you perform an action first, and then you try to justify according to the religion. That is the reason why most of the people have called this era as the Dark Age. Early medieval. If you read Puran, the word mentioned is Kali Yuga. So therefore, this period is called Kali Yuga. So our syllabus begins with Kali Yuga. Once you have drawn, let me know, I will shift to the other slide. Done? Everyone? Now we have to understand this shift today. This lecture is all about this shift. So when I say state, kindly write in the center. The state is the king, because autocracy. Now we have to define the state according to the king. King is the state. On one side write ancient. On the other side write medieval or early medieval, because we have to see the change which happens in early medieval. To understand the change, we have to do a comparative analysis. If you were a king in ancient period, the most important work you have to do is you have to uphold Raj Dharma, where dharma is religion. In fact, one part of religion. Dharma. Raj Dharma. What does Raj Dharma mean? Raj Dharma means to uphold. Raja is only concerned about Varna, Ashram, Dharma. Look at it very carefully. The meaning of dharma has changed. Now, dharma here is morality. How moral you are is defined according to your texts. So, the responsibility of the Raja is to uphold Raj Dharma, which means to uphold Varna Ashram Dharma. Now, what is Varna Ashram Dharma? The first thing that you have to understand that in this time period, the society was broken into fourfold Varna category: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Out of these four, the first three were considered Dvija. Dvij means twice born, जो दो बार पैदा हो, twice born. Whereas Shudra was considered Ekaj, the one who is born once. Dvij, Ekaj. Now this Dvij are the only set of people who are allowed two things. You can be given education, only you can go to Gurukul, and number two, you can only claim to become kings. These are the two things which are kept for the first three, Dvija, education and the king. So if you are being educated and if you are going to become a king, it is only you who will follow the Varna Ashram Dharma. So the Varna Ashram Dharma is Brahmacharya when you are a student, followed by Grihastha, followed by Vanaprastha, followed by Sannyasa. Sannyasa. So these are the fourfold ashrams defined according to a book. That brings us to the third point. The third point. So where does the Raja understand all these things? His understanding is built on Ved. Ved defines all this. Ved. If you see this, the fourfold Varna system, this has been defined, if you want you can write it here, is been defined according to Rig Veda. In the Rig Veda there is a book called book number 10. Book number 10. It has Purusha Shukta. So if anybody asks you, which is the first verse where you find the mention of the fourfold Varna system, the answer is Purusha Shukta of Rig Veda, which is part of book number 10. So we can say safely that the Raja is upholding Raj Dharma on the basis of Vedas. Now Vedas were never in the written form, so therefore they were called Shrutis. Ved are important in this time period. So can we say it like this, that a Raja who is in ancient India has to uphold Raj Dharma. To uphold Raj Dharma, he has to ensure Varna Ashram Dharma. And to ensure Varna Ashram Dharma, he has to locate the rules from the Veda. Can we say it like that? In other words, comes point number 4. In these days, the laws are made directly from the Veda. And the laws which are made from the Veda is called Dharma Sutra. Dharma Sutra. Understood? 4 important points in ancient India: Raj Dharma, Varnashram Dharma, Purusha Shukta, Ved, laws. 4 points. You see a stark change. When you come to the early medieval period, you see a change. So draw a line. Early medieval. As I said, the Raja is corrupt in early medieval. So the role of the Raja is changed. Now the Raja is not interested in Raja Dharma. Now he is interested in Dharma Vijaya. Dharma Vijaya, also referred to as Digvijaya. There is a stark change. Kindly concentrate on the word Dharma. The Dharma here means Niti. The meaning of Dharma is changed. Policy. Anything which is not written and only recited is called a Shruti. In CRT class 6th, which you do not have to read. I hope you have read it already. Dharma Vijaya. Number 2. Suddenly, the Raja is only interested in himself. Digvijaya, Niti, policy. Why is he making policies? Simple. He wants to justify his being, and he is only interested in one thing. Only one thing. To become the most powerful ruler in the realm. When the mother becomes corrupt, when the parents do not look out for their children, the children are deemed to fail. And that is what is happening with the subjects. The Raja is only concerned with him. So the society is no more Varna Ashram Dharma. It becomes Varna Sankar. Varna Sankar is very easy to understand. In Varna Sankar, a Brahman marries a Kshatriya marries a Vaishya marries a Shudra marries a Nishad marries a Brahman. In other words, Anulom, Pratilom marriages begin to take shape. Anulom, Pratilom marriages happen. So what is changing? Something very crucial. Suddenly, the Varna is no more important. Now, Jati becomes important. So Jati takes over. Now Varna is not important. Varna based on occupation, Varan. Jati based on birth. Now birth becomes important. Point number 3. Varna was written in Veda. So where does Jati come from? To have Jati, you need another text. And this is the time period, early medieval, when Veda is gone, Puran becomes important. The total number of Puran in this country is 18. And since Puran is the first document to be found in written form, these are called Smritis. These are called Smritis. So let's do it again. The Dharma Vijay leads to Varna Sankar, which is found its basis in Puran. So can we say, point number 4, that here the laws are made of Purana. So when you make your laws based on Purana, it is called Dharma Shastra. That is the basic difference between ancient and early medieval. Now, the most important change, the most important change is point number 5. As you can see, there is no point number 5 here. There is only point number 5 here. So the Raja is corrupt. Raja only cares about himself. Raja is corrupt. He only cares about himself. But does that mean he would come out of his palace and behave like that? Absolutely not. There is a person who is standing for elections. He cannot say to the world how corrupt he is. So he shows his best face. So whenever king comes out of his court, whenever he comes to meet his people, he tells people how religious he is. In fact, he projects himself like Ram. And that is called Purta Dharma. If you come from North India, it is very easy to understand. Dharma ki purti. Dharma ki purti. Purta Dharma. In this, imagine a Brahman meets a Raja. Raja gives him dan. Imagine a poor set of people come and meet him. Raja makes bunds, canals for them, welfare, irrigation. In other words, it is this time period when the Raja built temples. That is the reason why you will read it in NCERT that the first temple of this country dates back to early medieval period. You will not find a temple in ancient India because you did not require it. Now you require it to justify all the sins you have done till now, so that the subjects still believe in you. These are 5 points. Out of these 5 points, we have to once again understand Digvijaya and Dharma Shastra. These 2 points. Done? I am moving forward. I am keeping it easy right now. Dharma Vijaya. As I said, Dharma Vijaya or Digvijaya only means one thing. It means the king wants to be a Chakravarti. Chakravarti is a word used for a Raja who wants to be known in all the 4 directions. Is there any prerequisite required? Yes, you have to study. King wants to be a Chakravarti, known in all the 4 directions. Okay? Now there is a problem. It is early medieval India. First, we will take an example. I will not tell you why this is happening right now. I will tell you after 2 slides. But right now you have to understand, okay? What is your name? Jain. Jay. Aapka naam? Piyush. Once upon a time, there was a ruler by the name Jay and Piyush too. They had one thing in common. Both of them wanted to be a Chakravarti, but there was only one problem. They did not have any cash. So the first, what should we study? Sources. If you have just joined right now, you are getting kicked out from the Zoom meeting every 5 minutes. It means you have not kept your camera on. And what to study? I have written it on page number 1. Class notes only. And 2 chapters from NCERT. No cash. Jay, Piyush. Now Jay wants to become a Chakravarti. So what he does? He wages a war on Piyush. Interestingly, he also wins. But then, he does not kill Piyush. That is the first change. Had Jay been Ram and Piyush been Ravan, he would have been dead. Or for example, Bali, he would have been dead. But this time, does not annex. But why is that so? The answer is very easy. And that is, Jay will not kill Piyush because no cash. He does not want to incur expense of maintaining administration. Because if he kills Piyush, He has to remove every official from that land, and then he will have to give salary to every new official. He does not have money. All right. He does not have money. Does not want to incur expense of maintaining administration. So what does he do? He defeats Piyush and calls Piyush and tells Piyush to take his hat. He takes his hat, puts it at the feet of Jay and accepts loyalty. He pledges from now on he will be calling Jay his master. Jay in return says, I give you the authority, the right to maintain law and order, which means you will continue to rule the way you were ruling. Then he says, since I want to be Chakravarti, you are the only one king that I have defeated. I have to defeat other rulers. So kindly maintain an army. You have to bear the burden of maintaining an army that you will have to provide to the king, that is Jay, whenever the king requires it. Point number 4. He says, since you have been loyal to me, you have pledged loyalty to me, I give you another right. You do not have to pay me any tax. For you, everything is rent-free. No tax. But since I am your senior, I hope you will be sending me annual gifts. That is called tribute. Annual tribute. Then he says, do not worry. This piece of land will always remain a hereditary property for you, your son, your grandson. Nobody will remove you. In other words, it is a non-transferable property. You will be the master of this piece of land and I will not issue the same piece of land to anybody else. 7 points. Now, if you look at the board very carefully, you will not find even a single point on religion. Is it? Do you see any point on religion? So the first question that comes to your mind is, if there is nothing religious, why we are calling it Dharma Vijaya? Exactly, that is the point. Because Dharma Vijaya is not Dharma, it is policy, Niti. That is the policy. But then if you remember, there was a small circle of religion in early medieval also. So Jay returns home. And when he returns home, he celebrates his victory. To celebrate his victory, he puts a very big rock. This is a rock. In this rock, he writes. It's a written rock. The language that he chooses is Sanskrit. In this rock, he writes, I, Jay, the Kshatriya of this country, born from the family of Prabhu Shri Ram, I, who is married to Lakshmi, I, who is married to Mother Earth, I, who control wind, air, fire, and the rivers, I, the power bestowed in me through Prabhu Shri Ram and the Ved, give Piyush a second chance. Everybody knows Piyush did not commit any crime. But what is he doing is, he is using religion to justify his political objective. This piece of rock has a name in history. Prasishti. The famous Prasishti of Samudragupta, Allahabad, Prayag Prasishti. So you see, you have an understanding of Dharma Vijaya. That is Dharma Vijaya. Now we have to understand the second important term. And the second important term is Dharma Shastra. Done? Everyone? Done? Everyone? Everyone? There were 18 Puran in this country. And these Puran were written in Sanskrit. And in those days, if you are speaking Sanskrit, it means you are Dvija and particularly a Brahman. Brahman controls the education. Brahman controls the scripture. Hansa Sveta Baka Sveta Ko Bhedo Baka Hansayo. Nir Shir Viveketu Hanso Hansa Bako Baka. How many of you understood this? Exactly, that is the point. So Brahmins kept the Puran, they wrote the Puran, and that gives them the right and authority to make laws out of Puran. That is where Dharma Shastra comes into picture. So what is Dharma Shastra? Dharma Shastra are the law books that comes out of Puran. The total number of Dharma Shastra is 24. They are also written in Sanskrit. They were written in Sanskrit. Together, since it is in Sanskrit, together the 24 Dharma Shastra is also named something. For example, you have a periodic table, correct? You first arrange the elements and then you say that there are certain elements which are called halogen also. Understood? Similarly, there are 24 Dharma Shastra. They are together called Chaturvimshati Mat. Chaturvimshati Mat. It will take you 3 months to revise my lectures. So do not be very harsh on yourself because I teach tough. Alright? Requirement of the exam. बात समझ में आ रहा है? Chaturvimshati is Sanskrit for 24. Mat means perspectives. So it is Dharma Shastra which is giving you law of the society. We do not call it laws. It sounds bad. It is an English word. We call it, let's keep it simple, code of conduct for the people. Again, that is English. So let us use the word which they give us. They did not call it law. They did not call it code of conduct. They called it Vyavahar. So if UPSC asks, do we have a Vyavahar books in this country? Understand, they are asking about Dharma Shastra. Understood? Itni baat samajh aayi? So what is Vyavahar called in English? The literal translation of Vyavahar would be Bilkul nahi. That is why I said I teach tough. It is UPSC paper. So if UPSC asks, where it does, what is the meaning of mat? Mat is perspective, that chaji. Ethics. Ethics, the paper that you study in UPSC is actually coming from Dharma Shastra. Remember that always. That is the reason why it is an important paper in your exam. Now when you say ethics, ethics for who? Ethics for who? If you are going to take PSIR optionals, this is the place where you concentrate. Alright? A. The code of conduct for the subjects. The people who live in your society, in your kingdom, subjects. Always remember, for a subject, Vyavahar, ethics, may be, underline may be, legally binding if the time requires it. According to the situation, it can be legally binding. But the ethics is also defined for the state. The king cannot say that I will not have ethics for me. It is never legally binding. He makes ethical laws for himself, but never follows. I said it is important for PSIR. What is your name? Dushyant was sitting in his car and suddenly somebody comes and knocks at his door and says, since you are not wearing a mask, you will have to pay the fine. He says, there is no such rule that can make me follow the duties. I will spit on the road. I will not wear a mask. Do whatever you want. The police puts fine on him saying that for 6 months, the government of India have made fundamental duties to be followed verbatim. He is very angry, he comes home. There is a manhole which has been opened. He is so angry that the next day he goes to the court and files a PIL against the Chief Minister of Delhi. The Chief Minister of Delhi says, I am not coming. Directive principle of the state policies. That is the reason why ethics is taught to you. Because when you say that constitution is not at all religious, you are only 2/3 correct. Because 1/3 of the constitution is being made from the Dharma Shastra of this country. Clear? Once again, the Chaturvimshati Mat has to define the laws of the nation. एक और चीज मैं बता दूं. At this point in time, it is important to understand that Google will not help you. So whatever you read in Google is incorrect. All right, so you will only follow this. Chaturvimshati begins with 2 important texts. The first 2 Dharma Shastra of this country, the one is Manu Smriti and the other is Yajna Valka Smriti. These are the 2 canonical texts which everybody needs to follow. Everyone. Now these 2 books were written in the 2nd century CE, ancient India. But at that time, these texts were not important because Ved, Puran was gaining ground but not that popular. Ved was popular. But after some time, as you enter the early medieval period, we saw the writing of 22 other Dharma Shastra. And what is interesting is, all the Dharma Shastra subjects mean people, citizens. Early medieval, all the Dharma Shastra that you saw has been based on these 2 books. The 2 most important books for our understanding for the exam is, one is Daya Bhag, written by Jimut Vahan. I have written it under Manu Smriti because it takes cues from Manu Smriti. Similarly, there is a book called Mitakshar, which is written by Vigyaneshwar. I have written this name under Yajnavalk because it takes cues from there also. That does not mean it is a hard and fast rule. Dayabhag also pulls from Yajnavalk, but most of the things here is from Manu Smriti. Understood? Yajnavalk Smriti gives you Mitakshar completely, 100%. Dayabhag takes 70% from Manu, 30% from Yajnavalk. Now these 2 books, the names are written below. Jimut Vahan and Vigyaneshwar are the names of the people. Dayabhag and Mitakshar are names of the books. Now people think that these are not important because this is history. Incorrect. These 2 books are equally important in 2024. The question is, how? The question is, how? Because now we have constitution. But what if we put these 2 books in constitution? Am I saying that 2 Dharma Shastra are mentioned in the constitution? We will see. Have you written? These two books are written in the bare laws, the bare act of this country. We call it Hindu Law Code. So what is Hindu Law Code of India 2024? Daya Bhag, and Mitakshar, they define the property laws of this country. How much property you can claim from your fathers, you have to follow these two books. Daya Bhag was followed only in one place in this country, Bengal, since the time of the Pala dynasty. Whereas Mitakshar was followed all across India, obviously except Bengal, since the time of Chauhan dynasty. I hope you have heard the name Prithviraj Chauhan, 12th century. So you have, yes Adarsh, so followed in Bengal, and this is followed all across India. Now if you are sitting in Bengal and if you are following property laws from Daya Bhag, you can never claim property. Son, never the owner of property until father lives. You have to kill your father here if you want to claim property. You have to wait till he dies. Number 2 here, the father, the son and the grandson. How many generations? So write it, 3 generations are co-owners of the property the day they are born. Do we have to take notes as you teach, or we'll get 1 minute to jot? No, you will just have to do both. Imagine that you are already an IAS officer and the Prime Minister of India is speaking and you are taking notes. You can't say, stop sir, I will write. No, do it. Prepare as a servant. Servant does not get time. And behave like a bureaucrat. Don't ask me silly questions. Number 3, one more thing, I do not give hand notes. So no handouts for you. This is the only place where you will learn all this. And you have to maintain the pace, that's the point. Son never, that is the reason why I come just after your first introductory classes. Just to tell you what is the pace you have to maintain. Son never the owner until the father is alive. Point number 3. What if you are married, the wife becomes the co-owner of the property? Number 3, the wife is a guardian of the property. Until if you have a son, son becomes adult. Until then, she will just be the guardian of the property. That is the reason why across India except Bengal, you will have all the examples of regent queens. Ahilya Bai Holkar, Rani Jhansi, alright, Tarabai. All these examples come from across India except Bengal. You will not find any such character. Modern India. Number 4, what if you have a girl child? Girl gets Stridhan. That is a direct borrowing from Manusmriti. Because Manusmriti said Stridhan dena padega, the dowry that you give at the time of marriages. Number 4 here, girl is a property. Girl herself is a property, so you should be lucky that you got one. That is the point here. Number five. Let us imagine that you are three, four brothers. All right. The division of property is allowed. In other words, you are four brothers, you take out your share, you sell it off in the market, and you go with your wife and settle in Hollywood. In other words, it promotes nuclear family system. Number five, division of produce only allowed. Let us say you have 1 acre of land and you are two brothers. You cannot sell off your land, all you can sell off is the grain that is produced on that land. The division of produce only allowed, you cannot sell your property. In other words, it promotes joint family system. So if you are intelligent enough, you will then understand that maybe this is the reason why in places like Western UP, Rajasthan, MP, Mahakhap is so important. Khaps. Because everything is decided as a big joint family. You are not allowed to sell. That is your introduction of the lecture. Now we begin with the lecture. Understood? So whenever I say that is the end of the lecture, introduction, that means it will come in mains. Okay? When I say we'll start with the lecture, it will come in PT. It may come in mains, but introduction will always come in mains. For example, this is UPSC 2021 PT question, but 2022 mains question. Whatever they ask in PT, 2 years later they will ask in mains. That is how they ask. Shall we? Now we are ready to understand early medieval. Early medieval. So we discussed the king. In early medieval, the king is doing three things. If we have to boil down everything that we studied in 3 points, we will write, he follows Dharma Vijaya. To follow Dharma Vijaya, it is important that he asks the Brahmins to create Dharma Shastra so that he can control the subjects. And sometimes to appease the Brahmins, he has to give dan in the form of land. Purta Dharma. These are the 3 things which a Raja is doing. Now a question comes to our mind. Under Dayabhag, will the wife become owner of property? Yes. She owns the property. That is why condition of women in Bengal is a bit better. I am not talking about today. I am talking about 10th century Pala dynasty. Alright, that is why when you go to Odisha and Bengal, you will find many names of the rulers who are actually women. Jaise Tribhuvan Devi, Mahanavmi Devi. These women can only exist there. If you go there, you will find a name, Rudrama Devi. But you will not find the names like these in MP, Gujarat or Punjab or Bihar or whatever. Now the question is, what suddenly happened? What suddenly happened that you became so corrupt? Kuch to hua hoga. So we have to understand the changes, see the likho, changes in early medieval. What really happened that influenced the Raja to behave like this? And that brings us to the first problem. अब आप कुछ पॉइंट्स लिखेंगे और फिर वही करेंगे. We will understand it. First we will write the points. Number 1. There was a collapse or decline in urban economy, the urban markets collapsed. The reason was simple: no cash. No cash inflow. Suddenly, money stopped coming. There was a decline in trade. Decline in trade. So what happened? What happened? The markets collapsed. The markets collapsed. Urban economy collapsed. There was nowhere you have a market. It has simply collapsed. Point number 2. Now the Rajas, how would they survive? So the only place, it is quite difficult to understand the topic that you taught. Exactly it is. What can we do to better the understanding? Class 6, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, NCRTs. And then if you can, possibly, if you can, there's one book on ancient India that you finish. Choose any, whatever you, once you finish ancient India, then you will understand this lecture. Any book, take any book on ancient India, 600 pages, Upender Singh. That is why when you come to prepare for UPSC, you have to remember that most of the things you have to learn, because 1 year only you have. Jot and learn, because I am teaching you very basics. I have gone to the basics to teach you. That is why I gave you 1 hour introduction, just to come here. This is the lecture actually. What I was teaching was ancient, and ancient is not my part. Number 2, whenever there is a collapse in the economy, the pressure is on the village. Revival of rural economy. Now you have to remember it. If you are not an economist, you just have to remember it. Revival of rural economy. Revival. Why? If the urban markets collapsed, why is the village performing well? Why? This could not have been understood by a student who was here in 2019. But that can be understood by a student who is studying in 2024. When Corona happened, the people, the state said, stay back, we will feed you. People took their cycles and went back to their villages. Whenever there is a crisis, people go to their villages. But why? Because villages work on barter system. And this barter system is called Jajmani. Again, this is ancient. The Jajmani system. ज़्यादा दूर जाने की जरूरत भी नहीं है. Go to certain villages in Haryana. You will see many Golgappa sellers there. They sell you pani puri, and in return they do not take money, they take grains. Go to Haryana, you will see. Go to Rajasthan, you will see. They perform a work, in return they take grains. Jajmani system. Why there is a collapse in the market? बेटा जगह नहीं है. पहले लिख तो ले. अभी तो कहा शिकारी आएगा, जाल बिछाएगा, दाना डाल. सीख तो ले. पहले पॉइंट तो लिख लूं मैं. तो समा तो बनाने दे. सेज तो सजा लेने दे. फिर घूंघट उठाऊंगा. Number 3. There was no money. It was very hard for the Raja to maintain a massive empire. So what happened? The kingdoms collapsed. Political decentralization. Political decentralization. The big empires, Gupta Empire collapsed. Point number 4. New small kingdoms emerged, and every kingdom had a new smaller king, and every new smaller king had many smaller officials. Emergence of intermediaries. Intermediaries. Point number 4. Emergence of intermediaries. Number 5. Now you tell me, if the Raja wants to live in luxury, what should he do? Exploit. But who exploit? Who would you exploit? Exploitation of the villagers but we use the word peasants. He is going to exploit the peasants. So Raja is only interested in taking the grain. So the peasant is involving himself in protecting the grain. So the children of the peasant are marrying some other person. When the father is looking somewhere, the children will marry someone else. नहीं, बाप काम कर रहा है, बेटा धोबिन के साथ लगा पड़ा है. Emergence of jatis. Number 7. When that is happening, every new jati which is created will now have their own set of heroes. All the people sitting in this room are a byproduct of this jati. Ask yourselves these questions. Do not tell me. You ask yourself, who do you worship? Whatever name comes to your mind, 99.9% of the time, not 99, 100% of the time, that God is not mentioned in Veda. समझ आई बात? Whatever God you worship is not mentioned in Veda, which means every God is a new creation. Bhakti movement and Tantricism takes shape. Hanuman is not in Veda. So is Ram. They are not mentioned in Veda. All these are new gods. Emergence of Bhakti movement and Tantricism. How rural economy was in revival when peasants were exploited as they were the majority. You exploit only those who have something. For example, you are exploiting me because I have something. These 7 points are written in English. Brahmins chose to write in Sanskrit. So they did not know all these fancy words. So they simply called all these change as Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga. That is Kali Yuga. The coming of these 7 plus 3 points is Kali Yuga, 10 points. But we who are considering ourselves educated call it Indian feudalism or simply Samantavad. That is your early medieval. So if UPSC asks you, what is early medieval? Just say Samantavad. Is there any god mentioned in Veda? Yes. 64. 64. But none of them you worship today. Indra, Varuna, Pusun. लिख लिया? Now we have to deal with all the points, one after the other. The first point is decline of the urban economy. वहीं से शुरू करते हैं. Once upon a time, when Byzantine, how exactly Jati emerged? Gaurav, you are a Tripathi. Go and marry a Yadav. Simple. So simple. How Jati emerged? Why do you want to study it? Go perform it. ऐसे भी आजकल चल रहा है ना, hands on education, experiential learning. Feel it. Once upon a time, the Byzantine, also called the Eastern Rome, whose capital was Constantinople, came flocking on the route called the Silk Route, just for one product, obviously the silk. And it is here that you would find many Indian middlemen working as intermediaries. They would help in trade. After all, they are the Indian Vaishya community, merchants. This trade was so lucrative that 2 points on this map of India, this point is Daibul, which is the only Indian port on Indus River, also called Banbhor, and the only port towards Bengal, Tamralipti, flourished. So much money came to India, because Byzantine was dealing in gold coins. They brought their gold coins. So much money was brought in India. Which gold coin? We call it drachma. This drachma came to India so much so that many historians call this period the Golden Age. Okay? This drachma entered India through the merchants. In India at this time there was Gupta Empire. So Gupta Empire also dealt in gold coins. Do you know the name of the gold coin of the Guptas? Suvarna. But that is what we call it. But what was it actually called? Do you know? It was called Dramya. In other words, Dramya is Drachma. In other words, if there is no Drachma, there is no Dramya. In other words, since Drachma and Dramya are same, Indian economy is based on the coming of Drachma to this country. In other words, Gangadhar hi Shaktiman hai. Understood? Something happened in 550 CE. In 550 CE, Byzantine stole silkworm. So when they stole silkworm, they stopped coming on the Silk Route. As they came coming on the Silk Route, Indian merchants lost their job. When Indian merchants lost their job, there was no drachma to come to India. So there was no drum in India. So there was no cash. Daibul declined. Tamralipti also declined. Everything declined. सब कुछ खत्म हो गया. 550 CE onwards. But nothing is black and white. For example, if you have some memory of Corona period, you know, that you would, for example, if UPSC asks you to write an answer on Corona, you will write everything was closed. Alright, it was a period where everything was put at a halt. The world was at halt. That's how you will write. But even you know that is not correct. Ask the boys. Nothing was closed. Alright. Girls, you only have idea of milkmen working and the vegetable shops working. But ask boys. Yes, 10 रुपए की चीज 15 में मिल रही थी. 20 की चीज 25 की मिलती थी. पर मिलती थी. How can somebody stole silk? Silkworm. Somebody stole silkworm. From silkworm comes silk. It takes time to make. Yes, it took them 50 years to skill the act. Everything is not happening. It didn't happen Monday, it did not happen on Tuesday. It took 50 years. Kunjam, kunjam. So what I'm trying to tell you is, nothing collapses completely. The Indian merchants returned back home. ये हिंदुस्तान आ गए. And then they stayed at 4 important places in India. 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 1 is Prithudak. Prithudak today is in Haryana. इसी को हम आज पेहोवा के नाम से जानते हैं. पेहोवा, if you have been to Haryana. Number 2, for good things. Number 2, Gopagiri is present day Gwalior. Number 3 is Siyadoni. Also added with it is Lalitpur, which actually forms what you refer to as Jhansi. And number 4 is Tat Anandpur. Tat Anandpur is basically Bundelkhand region. Is in present Daibul and Tamrilipti in India. The places are there, but it is gone. For example, Harappa is there, but gone. Is, was. All right. If you see, that is the place where some form of trade is happening. Some form of trade. अगर तुम इंटेलिजेंट हो और आईएएस मटेरियल हो तो समझ पाओगे ये. स्कूल में जब पढ़ते थे, when you studied in school, you studied that there was somebody called Ashok. There was somebody called Chandragupta Maurya. And where did they operate from? Somewhere here. Patliputra, Magad. But then as you moved in class 6th and class 7th in your school, you started reading that there was a ruler called Harshvardhan. And his capital was Kannauj. कश्मीर नहीं. हर्षवर्धन मर जाता. स्नोफिलिया था उसको. So the capital was Kannauj. The question is, why Kannauj? No, because if you are in Kannauj, only then you can control all the markets. So the shift and the importance of Kannauj in early medieval, this is Magad. This is ancient. The importance of the rise of Kannauj in early medieval is just because these 4 important markets were in the vicinity. And whoever controlled this market would have been the champion of early medieval, and that makes Harshvardhan important. That is why Kannauj is important. Iron was not that important during the time of Harshvardhan. आयरन तो बहुत पहले से है भारत में. लोहे पर ही तो खड़ा किया था चंद्रगुप्त ने. आयरन पिलर, कुतुब मीनार. आयरन पिलर, कुतुब मीनार, that you see is of Gupta period. So आयरन तो पहले से था. ये बीच में आयरन कहां से आ गया? हम आयरन तो बात भी नहीं कर रहे. ठीक हो? क्या सोच रहे हो? So this is how the cash inflow left India. No cash, urban decline. Clear है? चलो अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now you are ready to understand the other points. In the middle right, feudalism. In the middle right, feudalism. On one side right, Europe. On the other side right, India. The word feudalism comes from Europe actually. That area we found the majority of or iron ore. I have no idea. But iron was with India. If iron was there, it means there was iron ore. We have to make a triangle. It's actually a pyramid. Pyramid has 3 layers. 1, 2 and 3. Now we break this pyramid into 2. The left side represents Europe, the right side represents India. Clear? Here at the top is a king. But India do not have king, India has Maharaja. It may sound similar, but it is not. What was the name of the 3 cities? Which 3 city? Be specific. Do not talk like my mother. Use noun in the pronoun. वो वहां रखा है उसके पीछे. अरे कहां? किसके पीछे? क्या रखा है? Ask the question again. Which 3 cities? The difference is the king is the owner of the land. However, the Maharaja is just a guardian of the land. In other words, the Maharaja is not the owner. In other words, he is just a protector. In other words, a Raja should be ideally a Kshatriya, a protector. That is the basic difference between Europe and India. Number 2. In the second box, you write vassal. They are known by different names: Lord, Duke, Baron. These are the words used for them. But in India, we simply call them Bhogika. Bhogika. These are named Raja, Rana, Rawat, Ranaka. Rana jaisa, Ranaka. These are the titles used by the vassals in India who are called Bhogika. Now understand this, that the king here has a kingdom, and here also he has no cash. He has no cash. So he takes out a piece of land from his kingdom. This piece of land is called fief. And he gives fief as a salary to the vassals. Alright. He gives a piece of land as salary to the vassal. So what is a fief? Fief is a piece of land. 2. Given to vassal. 3. In lieu of salary. In lieu of salary. Sorry, in lieu of service. Sorry, salary likh raha hu. In lieu of service. As salary. In lieu of service. Whatever service you do, in lieu of that you get a salary. But why would you give this person the salary? What is so special about this vassal? 7 things which you already know. Number 1, he has to be loyal. He has to maintain law and order. He has to maintain army. I am just writing the same point which I wrote for Piyush. So you can write the same. Number 4, and you can write faster than me because we have already done. It is rent free. The more you write, the better you remember. Annual tribute. Hereditary and non-transferable. These 7 points. Meaning of vassal. Vassal is a vassal. subordinate to the king. In India also, the Raja has a kingdom. The kingdom here is called Desh. Even he did not have cash, no cash. But since he is a guardian, not an owner of a land, even then he is allowed to give a piece of land as salary. This piece of land is called Bhog. And Bhog is given to the salary as a salary to Bhogika. So what is a Bhog? The same definition, exactly word to word. Same. So at this level, everything is the same. So the vassal in India and the vassal in Europe is exactly same. That is the only place where feudalism is the same. Understood? Now comes the last box, which we have not filled yet. Now we have to fill that box. हो जाए तो बताना. Done. Difference between owner and guardian. Very simple, Smriti. You bought a pen. You are the owner of the pen. You can do whatever you want with the pen. Now comes the guardian. You have studied in a college, I hope. The principal of the college is the guardian of the college, not the owner of the college. Okay? So, the guardian does not own the college but can rusticate you. So, understand that the king here is the principal of the college who decides where you will study and when would you be rusticated. Okay? So, guardian is the principal of the college. Simple, understandable. You are the owner of the pen. And that is the only thing that you have. Use it well. So that you can become a bureaucrat one day and ask the principal, why did she do that? Now what I have done is, I have taken a fief. What does vassal provide in return for the fief? Why would they write? Have you not seen Game of Thrones? Why would the Stark family write anything to the Westeros? They just pledge. Now this is a fief. कुछ नहीं देखते ये, ना किताब पढ़ रहे होते हैं. Fief or bhog, one and the same thing. Alright? So you have been given a piece of land and you know that nobody can remove from here. So the first thing that you do here is you build a castle, एक महल बनाते हो. Then you leave a space in this piece of land which you may call as cant area because it is here that you will get the soldiers prepared. Raja can ask for it anytime. If Maharaja is guardian, then who is the owner of the land? Nobody, you will see. But देख तो ले. चचा, लिखा है, इसी में लिखा है, ध्यान से देख. सब कुछ इसी में लिखा है. अगर थोड़ा बुद्धि लगाया तो यहीं पे वही पढ़ा रहा हूं, ध्यान से देख. I hope you can understand that when a land was given to a person, he was not given a Gobi desert or Thar desert or Sahara desert. It was a place where people inhabited. So the people were living already here and there were many people with many plots of land on their name. In other words, देख तेरे सवाल का जवाब यहाँ है दोस्त, देख ध्यान से देख, आँख खोल के. Number one, these are peasants and peasants own land. समझ आई बात? Who is the owner of land? So if UPSC asks, who is the owner of land in Europe? Your answer would be king, vassal, peasant. If this question is asked in terms of India, who is the owner of land in India? There is no king. Vassal, that is Bhogika, and the peasant. समझ आई बात? In Europe you have 3 owners, in India you have 2. Now we have to make, from 3 we have to reduce 1. In India, from 2 we have to reduce 1. You will see. Peasants own the land. There is always a war happening here and there. So wherever the war happens, because the Raja wants to be a Chakravarti, the taxes go up. When the taxes go up, the peasant will have to pay the tax because vassals do not pay tax. The whole pressure is on the peasant. So peasant takes loan against property. He puts his land on mortgage, and then he takes loan. He becomes a tenant. Matlab, he loses his land. All right. He has no land anymore. Chala gaya na? So now tell me, how many owners of land in Europe now? 2, king and vassal. In India now, only 1. That is why zamindari system is so important in India. Zamindars are the real Raja. No land. And they have had to give one more freedom. No freedom anymore of movement. In other words, they cannot leave the village and run away. They do not have freedom of movement. So basically, the word that we use, itna lamba kaun likhe? So we just write, they are tied to the land. They are tied to the land. ठीक? यहां तक सब कुछ सही चल रहा था फिर भी. Because the vassal will demand this tenant that you cannot run away. So how does he ensure that? He says, come to me after you have finished your work so that you can perform forced labor on my fields. So now the tenants would be asked to perform labor in the property of the vassal. That is called corvée. Understood? Forced labor, which is a customary labor, so that he does not run away. Understood? यहां तक फिर भी ठीक था. The problem happens when this tenant is about to lose his dignity. Number 3, one day the vassal will say, what are you doing tomorrow? Sir, I am free. I will be working in the field and then I will be working in this stubble. Will you not go home tomorrow? Yes, sir, I will. After I clean your stubble, horses, I will go to home. Do one thing. Do not go home. Ask your wife to come to the castle so that I can use her. In other words, in the 3rd stage, the tenant loses his dignity. When a tenant loses his dignity, he becomes a serf. Understood? He has got nothing. कुछ भी नहीं है अब इसके पास. He has no land. He has no dignity. In this box, therefore, write serf. इसी के लिए European feudalism is also called serfdom. Serfdom. You have a serf. Do it again. दोबारा करते हैं. Now India. This is a bhog. The bhogika have made a castle. Correct? Made a castle. They have kept a cant area and there are many land belonging to the peasants. Correct? The war happens. We are doing the same thing. The war happens. The peasant takes loan. He becomes a tenant. Now he has no land. He has no freedom of movement. He is tied to the land. The Raja says, you have to come and work for me. If the Raja asks him to work in North India, the forced labor is called Vishti. If the Raja is in Dakkan and asks you to do forced labor, it is called Biti. If the Raja is in South India and asks you to do forced labor, it is called Veti. It has 3 names. Vishti, Bitty, witty. Corvi in Europe, we have three names in India. Vishti, bitty and witty. North, Dakkan, South. Simple. Now, the vassal, the Bhogika says, what are you doing tomorrow night? Sir, I am free. Send your wife tomorrow. Why not, sir? Why not? But then, in India, serf does not exist. He will say, why not, sir? But will not go. How did he dare not to go? In India, serfs do not exist. How is that even possible? The vassal will kill you. How is that even possible? To understand this, you have to understand the very idea of India. Since त्रिपाठी जी ने उस वक्त सवाल पूछा था जाति पर, तो इसलिए मैं त्रिपाठी जी का एग्जांपल लूंगा. मतलब आप त्रिपाठी का एग्जांपल लो. Imagine that the Bhogika was a Yadav. Imagine. And here was a peasant, he was a Tripathi ji. समझ रहे हो? Now the Yadav ji says, Tripathi ji, send your wife. यादव जी ने तो कह दिया त्रिपाठी जी के कि आप आ जाना, पत्नी साथ ले आना. But it will not happen because Tripathi ji is above the Varna than Yadav. So half of the population was saved because of Varna hierarchy, Varna system. Because if a Yadav ji is going to sleep with a Panditain, it would be Mahapap. So half of the population is saved because of Varna system. But what if there is a Yadav here? अब तो फंस जाएगा यादव, बिकॉज इसमें तो कोई सिन नहीं है. ये भी बचेगा. वो कैसे? It is because of the anukampa of Bhagavan. I do not know how religious you are, you should be. India is blessed with 9 months of sunlight. 9 months of sunlight. गलत रूम में आ गए ना? 9 months of sunlight. India has got the most fertile land. You put a dead man, you will have a dead flower. It is so fertile. India has 9 months of sunlight and India has so many fertile land that if a vassal says to this tenant, bring your wife tomorrow, before tomorrow arrives, by the midnight, he will just run away in the forest and start jhum cultivation. Because you have too much land, which is not true in Europe. इतनी जमीन पड़ी है, तुम कोई भी उठा लो. You understand? So half of the population was saved because of Varna system and half of the population was saved because of the fertility of the soil and the availability of soil, availability of land. So in India, serfs do not exist. So what does exist in the last box? Peasant, tenant, slaves, war captives. So you have these many, but not a serf. Not a serf. You may have one here and there, serf, but it is not institutionalized. In Europe, it is an institutionalized system. It's a part of the system. In India, it is not part of the system. It is one or there, exceptions, flickering examples, that's it. War captives. English, huh? Thesaurus. Next slide, please. I know. Dekh. Done. If king in India is only guardian of land, how can he give it to someone else as bhog? The Prime Minister of India can sell, let us say, a PSU or not. But he is not the owner of the PSU. Because we have given him the power. The power is vested in him through the Constitution of India. Similarly, the king has the power vested in him according to the Dharma Shastra. He is a Kshatriya. And the role of the Kshatriya is to protect. For that, whatever he can do, he will. Done? आगे बढ़ते हैं. Now comes a very interesting question. Imagine this is a desh, the kingdom, and this is a piece of land which we call bhog. The question is very simple. The question is, what makes it feudal? What makes a bhog feudal? That is the simple question. What makes it feudal? What makes it? Hereditaryship of it. It is actually a good answer, but unfortunately incorrect answer. But it's a good answer. I will tell you why later. समझो इस बात को. पहली बात तो समझो, a bhog is a piece of land. Correct? It's a piece of land. Land is never feudal. Always remember this. Land is never feudal. Land कभी feudal नहीं होता. You go and stand on a land and ask that land, are you feudal? वो जवाब ही नहीं देता. Land is never feudal. Feudal is the relation. Feudal is the relation. रिश्ते की बात है यहां पर. So the relation between who? The relation between a man and the land. Which means, what do you mean by relation? So feudal relation means when a land is given with two rights, only then it becomes feudal. A land plus two rights make a land feudal. If you take anything out of it, it is not feudal. So what are those two rights which should be given with a land to make it feudal? And then that gentleman's answer becomes correct. Number one, right to administer. That is, maintain law and order. I am breaking it for you so that you understand that what we wrote for Piyush is correct every time. All right. Maintain law and order. But remember, civil only. Do not forget to write only. Civil only. Number two, the second right is, the Raja gave you a piece of land, but you are busy. Since he has given you the right to maintain law and order, now you have the right to get it cultivated, Matlab, let us say Piyush gets a piece of land and he has 100 acres of land. He wants to do something else. He breaks the pieces of land into 10 small pieces, 10 acres each, gives it to 10 other people and collects rent. Batai system. Contractualization. I think that is the reason why most of the people sitting here who comes from rural background can come and join this class, because their land is being tilled by somebody else right now in their village. So when you have the right of giving your land on Batai, you are actually a feudal lord. These two rights make a land feudal. समझ आई बात? Now comes, do we have a source? Because without source, there is no history. So comes the source. Nasik inscription, which belongs to Satavahanas. The ruler is Gautamaputra Satkarni, who was important for us 4 days ago because we were celebrating his Ugadi. All right. Gautami Putra Satkarni, he gave lands, he gave 2 big pieces of lands to Buddhist monastery. Buddhist monastery. He gives the pieces of land to Buddhist monastery. The first ever example of feudal grant. But now, this bhog is given to somebody. All right. How would people know that this bhog was once given by a king? For example, how do we know that Gautami Putra Satkarani gave this land? Because he left an inscription, correct? But there is another thing, apart from inscription. This inscription has to have one detail. Otherwise, we will not consider Gautami Putra Satkarni is the one who is giving it. So what should be the rights of a king? So the king keeps 2 symbolic rights on the piece of land. Symbolic rights. इसके पास 2 rights होते हैं. बहुत ध्यान से सुनना. The first right is called sub-earth right. Sub-earth right, which also includes mining. बहुत ध्यान से समझना इसको. When whoever has a piece of land and owns a piece of land in this country, whoever, जितने भी लोग बैठे हैं, ये याद रखना. You only own 8.5 inches of the earth's crust. 8.5 inch. Below that is the state's property. So इसको ऐसे समझो. You remember that दया भाग व्यवहार, इसको state ऐसे कहता है. State कहता है that if you are digging in your piece of land, you are digging and you found a skeleton, that is yours. But if you have found a treasury box kept beside the skeleton, that is of the state. So if you are digging in your land and you get a oil well, that is for the state to claim. Anything which is found below 8.5 inches belongs to the king because that is king's vetan. Vetan of king. All right. वेतन ऑफ द किंग. और इसमें सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट क्या होता है तुमको पता है? द बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल ऑफ अ सब अर्थ प्रॉपर्टी विच द किंग ऑलवेज क्लेम्स, सॉल्ट. देयरफॉर द सॉल्ट टैक्स इज टेकन बाय द किंग. सरदार मैंने तो आपका becomes a symbolic right. Therefore salt can only be claimed by the king. Number 2, here he has given you civil rights. Here he keeps criminal rights. That is, capital punishment can only be given to the Raja. We have heard so many stories, but we never paid heed to it. बहुत stories हमने सुनी है इस पर. Once upon a time, Tenali Raman goes to Krishna Devaraya. There is a punishment which has been given. So capital punishment, for capital punishment, Krishna Devaraya has to be consoled and persuaded. Because nobody else can give the capital punishment, only he. What if it is above 8.5? You go with a scale. I have no idea. If it is above 8.5, it will become part of the plant, humus. That is where the plant gets its nutrients from. 8.5 inch. Science. Now please understand the last point, the criminal rights. To maintain criminal rights, I hope it is understandable by logic that the police, who is called a cut, and the judge, which is called a bhatt, has to be maintained by the Raja himself. Otherwise, there would be a bias in the justice system. and it means that they should be given salary. They are salaried class, and this salary should come in cash, don't you think? Otherwise, if you give them a salary in a piece of land, they would turn bias. What if they have to deal with a case which is of their neighbor's land? Then there would be a bias. But don't you think I have been screeching at the top of my voice for the last 1.5 hours? There is no cash. So if there is no cash, it is quite practical to understand that there would be a time in history when the Raja, the Maharaja will have to transfer this right also. Transferred to local people, to Bhogika, to vassal. And if we can have a proof of this, we would know the exact century of the coming of feudalism in early medieval. 5th century, we have a reference from Vakatakas. Vakatakas, there was a ruler, his name was Pravarsena. Pravarsena II. He transferred these rights, his criminal justice system to his feudal lords, which suggests that 5th century is the time period when the region which you call Dakkan, Vindhyas, Gujarat touching Saurashtra, that region, Vakatakas, you have feudalism already. But then a question should arise in your mind. We have discussed feudalism in Satvana, 2nd century, it is ancient. We have discussed the reference of feudalism in Vakatakas. गुप्ता में प्रूव करो तो बात बने. Prove it in the most mighty empire of the time period, only then we will believe that yes, there has been a feudalism in India. Don't you think so? So if I prove it in Guptas, then we can assume that most part of this country had feudalism, because Guptas extended from north all the way till Karnataka. So let us prove this in Guptas. Done? Chalo. On the top, write Desh. Desh is the kingdom of the Maharaja. Now to understand it well, what we will do is, we will first understand the time period of Guptas when there was no feudalism, and then we will understand when feudalism arrived. So we will have two things at the same time, comparison and an understanding. So imagine this Maharaja is so rich that he gives salary to his people. Below Desh, he creates many provinces. Provinces are called Bhukti. Bhukti is a province. At the stage of province, you have Uparika. Uparika is a governor. इसकी सैलरी उस जमाने में 60,000 हुआ करती थी, 60,000 panas. Huge, very huge salary they received. Bhukti, that is the governor. Below the governor, below the province, you have districts. Districts were called Vishaya. This is what you want to become, the district magistrate. Vishayapati. So in Gupta period, we already have a concept of DM. Vishayapati is a DM. But this Vishayapati cannot take a decision. He is almost handicapped. Because he cannot take a decision without asking 4 members who are part of the council. 4 council members. And these 4 council members are the biggest people of the district. So who are these 4 council members? Number 1. देखो मुझे कितना याद है, तुमको इतना याद करना पड़ेगा. Number 1. Nagara Sreshtin. Nagara Sreshtin is the head of the merchant guild. He is the president of the merchant association. Number 2, Sarthavaha. Sarthavaha is the head of caravan traders, caravaneers, caravan traders. Number 3 is Pratham Kulika. Pratham Kulika is basically the head artisan. ये आर्टिस्ट्स का जितने भी आर्टिजान्स हैं उनका हेड है, हेड आर्टिजान, head of artisans. That's why I have written S, you can write off. Number 4 is Pratham. Tripathi ji, there is a jati. Kayastha. Kayasth are born. They are head accountants. 4 people, 4-member council. A Vishayapati cannot take a decision without their approval. Below Vishaya, we have blocks. Vethi, Bhumi, Patak. 3 different names for a block. Here is the block divisional officer. We call him Vethi Mahattar. Vethi Mahattar is called Vethi Mahattar in a Vethi. In Bhumi, he is called Ayukta. In Patak, he is called Adhikaran. Okay? Kayasth is accountant. ACCT is always accounts. Always, huh? So ACCT is accountant. Munin Sahab. And after Vethi comes the last box. Last important submission is the gram, the village. The village has a gramik. Has a gramik. Is Vishayapati and Amatya the same? No, Amatya is here, beta. Amatya is here. Amatya is the minister. Amatya sits here. Kumar Amatya sits here. Kumar Amatya sits here. Kumar Amatya is the son of the Maharaja. Amatya is upar. Amatya matlab minister. Minister sits in the parliament. No, parliament is in the center. Nahin. Gramik. Can you see how powerful is the structure? Even it was so powerful, but still then the village Gramik was very independent. Local self-government was a very interesting sociological underpinning from the time period of Guptas. 5th century, we get a record. In 5th century, it is said that a Gramik worked with the help of 5 council members. So it was basically a 5-member body, जिसको आप आज की डेट में पंचायत कहते हैं, पंच. 5 council members. In the records, we find the word Pancha Mandali. That is the word of the Gramik Association Council. Pancha Mandali. Okay? Pancha Mandali. But where do we get this record from? 5th century? 5th century, as I said, the record comes from Sanchi. Sanchi. Copper plate. Inscription of Chandragupta II, the greatest ruler. So that Maharaja, till whose time period there was no feudalism, is Chandragupta II. No feudalism. We have a record. Sanchi copper plate inscription. 100 years passed. 100 साल बीतते हैं. We reach 6th century CE. In 6th century CE, now this Gramik is an 8-member council. 8-member council is now called Ashtha Kul. Ashtha Kul. If you have some sense of the words in Sanskrit, you know that Kul means clan, which means that the Sarpanch is keeping his own relatives in the Mandali. When he is keeping his own relatives in the Mandali, I hope you understand that they will continue forever. As the gentleman said, hereditary, non-transferable. In other words, the position of these 8 members have become hereditary. Where do we get the records from? 6th century, Damodarpur, copper plate, inscription of Buddhagupta. So from the time period of Buddhagupta, we have a direct proof that feudalism has come and entered Gupta period. Easy. बस याद करने समय हवा निकलती है. अभी सब कुछ सही चलेगा. अपने को समय देना है इसमें. You have to give yourself time. Do not be very harsh on yourself, because I know it is not that easy. आराम से. Done? Now it is going to be point number 2, 3, 4, 5, all the points that we have discussed, we will put in one box. बहुत ध्यान से करना है इसको. The way I do it. Take a blank sheet, landscape mode. Leave some space on the left. Make a box. This is the box. On the top, write Desh. Write Maharaja. Let us give a name to that Maharaja. बेटा आपका नाम क्या था मैं भूल गया. Jay. Maharaja Jay. And he is, imagine after Buddhagupta और इसके पास पैसे नहीं है. No cash. Okay, we are taking the same example. We have to go back there so that we complete the process. We complete the story. Maharaja Jay. So here, when he has a Desh has Bhukti, BHU dot. Below that he has Vishaya, VIS. Below that he has Veti, VET. And then below that he has Gram, correct? Today is what date? 16th of April. Jay is getting worried because he knows that he literally does not have money to pay his officials. 16th has come, in no time it would be 30th, and on 30th of April people will demand their salary. So what he does, he comes with a plan. Jay is at least intelligent to do so. He calls all his governors. He calls all his governors and throws a party. चल एक party करते हैं. In that party, he offers all their governor their province as a bhog. From now on, you are going to be the bhogika of your province. All the governors are so happy that once they reach home, before reaching home, they declare themselves Raja. Because now they are the owners of the province. Let us say there is a person by the name Varun. Now he is calling himself Raja Varun. He comes home, hangover उतरता है. Then he realizes कि क्या हुआ उसके साथ. Then he realizes कि भाई, now I will have to pay salary to the district magistrate, block divisional officer, and also collect grains from the gram. I do not have money. So what he does? Yes, he throws a party, calls all the district magistrates and hand over their district as their bhog. All the guys are so happy. All right, they start calling themselves Mahasamant. let us call him Ram, Mahasamant Ram. Now he comes back home. Now he realizes that he has to pay salary to the block divisional officer and also collect grains from the gram. Again, he has the same issue. So he is going to throw a party. And then he calls all the block divisional officers. Block divisional officers are happy. They would call themselves Samant. But when they go home, they realize now they have to collect the grains from the gram. But they also have this realization that they can't do anything about it because gram is the last level. Ab kya kare? Who to put the burden on? So what do? They simply end up exploiting. Exploit the peasant. अभी आप नहीं लिखेंगे, सिर्फ देखेंगे. Exploit the. देखो ध्यान से पहले सीखो. Exploitation of peasants. If you are ever going to take PSIR, always remember this. Always remember this. Whenever you have a flow of officials, vertical, the flow is vertical. Whenever there is a flow of the power vertical, always remember the state is powerful. Always remember the state is powerful. No feudalism. Whenever the state is horizontally structured, always remember it is the proof of feudalism. Horizontal structure is a proof of a weak state. Let us do it again. A vertical flow of the government is called a powerful government, unitary government, strong federal government. Strong federal government. Whenever the power is horizontally spaced, it is called coalition government. PSIR. Understood? Feudalism. Again, to sustain himself, the Raja has got only one option, and that is give some power to his governor. For sustenance, the governor has to give some power to his subordinate. For this sustenance, the district magistrate has to give some powers to his subordinate. Decentralization of politics. Political decentralization. समझ आया? Now, in any condition, the Raja should directly deal with the gram. But these are the two sets of people who were an emergent people in this situation. They are intermediaries. Understood? Political decentralization, emergence of the intermediaries, exploitation of the peasants. Indian feudalism. That is what is happening. So, the story has not ended yet. Once upon a time, तो जय तो जीता था ना, जय जीता था ना. अरे यार, सॉरी जय, यहाँ पे तुम नहीं होगे, यहाँ पे पीयूष होगा. पीयूष. Once upon a time, there was a boy, his name was Jay. He wanted to be a Dharma Vijaya. So what he did, he waged a war on Piyush. यही कहानी थी ना? He waged a war, but he saw one thing very carefully. If he defeats and kills Piyush, then he will have to maintain all this. So his victory will turn out to be a greatest defeat of his life. So what he did not kill Piyush. Just told Piyush कि देख भाई, from now on you will call me your Raja. So start calling me Maharaja. Then he realizes he himself calls himself Maharaja. So it is better he calls himself Maharaja Dhiraj. So the titles, great titles, Maharaja Dhiraj, Param Bhattarak, Param Parameshwar, Mahamandaleshwar, Chakravarti Samrat, such big titles is actually the sign that feudalism has arrived. Now you make it. That is Indian feudalism. काइंडली इलेबोरेट हाउ इट इज हॉरिजॉन्टल. देख, दिख रहा है? Except for the way it is written. No, it is like this only. Horizontal. सब ऐसे समझ. There is a Raja. Somebody is holding his leg. There is somebody who is holding that person's leg. So everybody is horizontally inclined. Imagine that image, okay? Everybody is kissing somebody's feet. I cannot see kissing that, so I am saying kissing the feet. बना लिया? Everyone? बना लो. It's didn't get political decentralization. It's the result of exploitation. No. Political decentralization means giving your power. Maharaja is powerful, but he knows he cannot maintain all these places. So what he did, he gave some portion of his power to his governor. What are those two powers? Administrative right, civil, and right to get cultivated. Similarly, the governor gave some portion of his power to the district magistrate. So when you give out your power yourself, that is decentralization. Giving out your power to somebody else. So therefore, decentralization is not an outcome of exploitation. It is an outcome of feudalism. Because no cash. Everything is happening because there is no money. पैसा नहीं है तुम्हारे पास, ढेला नहीं है तुम्हारे पास, हवाबाजी चल रहा है बस. वो गांव में चचा नहीं होते, पगड़ी पहन के बैठे थे, मेरे समय में ये हुआ, तो कर ही लेते उस वक्त. तुम क्यों नहीं इलेक्शन लड़े? वो उस वक्त कुछ बकैती कर रहे थे वो. वैसे ही only administration and cultivate is passes as power. ये अंग्रेजी एक मिनट, इंग्लिश. अच्छा, right to cultivate. हाँ, these two, administrative right is with these people, no? They cannot give capital punishment. अभी तो देखा. Sub earth right is with the Raja. We अभी तो देखा. Then isn't the current public administrative system of India is also horizontal? जी. That is why you say you have feudal mentality. How feudal you are. कहते नहीं है? सुना नहीं कभी? Feudalism is therefore not a land. It is here relation. Feudal mentality. कहते नहीं तुम कभी कभी लड़का बड़ा feudal है? सुना कभी कहते वो लोगों को? लड़का feudal, लड़का तो जमीन नहीं है. हो भी सकता है. उगा लो. समझ रहे हो? लड़कों की खेती तो होती नहीं. So why boys are, I mean, feudal is because it is the relation. Because they have administrative right. हम बताएंगे तुम क्या पहनोगे. And they will decide who will you go to, right to get cultivated. इसलिए बाप बेटी को उससे बिना पूछे बेच देगा कि देख एक लड़का देखा है तुम्हारे लिए. अब वो लड़की ध्यान से सुन रही क्योंकि वो सिर्फ 6 महीने की है. कि देख अब तेरी उम्र नहीं रही दूध पीने की, तेरी मैंने शादी कर दी है, अब अगले दिन तो साड़ी पहने. उसको कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा, 6 महीने की है. Can you please give an example of vertical feudal system? Indira Gandhi's government. Present. To revise today's lecture, which one source you will suggest? Nothing. I am the only one. I am the alpha and the omega, but not lambda. So you have to follow only this. Feudal lands. A. The first feudal lands are religious lands. And here comes Devadan. Devadan, number 1. It is a gift of land to God. भगवान को ही पकड़ा देते हो कि ले भगवान तेरे लिए. Now, what if your Bhagavan is not a Hindu Bhagavan? Then the land is called Padi Chand. Padi Chand is a gift of land. When the gift is made to Buddhists or Jain, that is Padi Chand. I hope you understand that you cannot say भगवान के एक काम कीजिए, थोड़ा शिफ्ट हो जाइए, थोड़ा जमीन हमको चाहिए. So the land is hereditary. You cannot ask Tirupati ke Bhagwan to shift to Kanyakumari for some time. And I hope you cannot ask him to also pay rent. तो वो कुल्हे तोड़ देगा मरने के बाद. So the gods never pay tax and the land is always hereditary, religious pieces of land. Now B is those pieces of land which is given to the Brahmins. Now understand very carefully, I have not added Brahmins in religion. Brahmins are separate. Number 1 here is called a Brahmade. A Brahmade is a piece of land which is a gift to the Brahmins. Number 2 is Agrahara or Agraharam. That is a donation. When you donate a piece of land to the Brahmins. Donation, gift. Always remember, Haath Sukha, Brahman Bhukha. Brahmins never pay tax and the land once given to them, they won't return ever, whatever you do. That is piece number 2. Then comes number 3. That is secular pieces of land, secular lands, which is used for giving salary. We have already done one, that is Bhog, given to Bhogika. I won't write it for you, you write it yourself, that it is hereditary. लिख ही देता हूं यार, भरोसा नहीं मेरा तुम पर. It is rent free, but remember, they have to pay annual tribute. And number 2 is that piece of land which you give to small officials. Officials working in your court. उतना पैसा तो सबके पास होता है कि थोड़ा उनको दे दें. So here you are giving them land. It is non-hereditary. It is transferable. And it is taxable also. Imagine yourself as the district magistrate and you have a bungalow. You have to give the bungalow after you retire. Officials. What is interesting in this table is, all the things that I have written on the board is also in Europe except Brahmins. Brahmins only, Devadan is indirectly given to Brahman, obviously. अब भगवान थोड़ी आएंगे. It is obviously given to the Brahman, so Brahman gets a bigger chunk. So, coming back to the point, that in Europe you had church. So, you have a concept of a Devadan in Europe also. In Europe you had vassal, so you have this also. You have officials also, but you did not have Brahman. Brahman, ये हमारे घर की खेती है. ये हमारा बासमती है, ये सिर्फ हमारे पास है. सो ब्राह्मण समझना है. वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड ब्राह्मण. वंस यू हैव डन, लेट मी नो. Clergy is part of religious persona, but clergy is not a Brahman. Clergy, देखो ब्राह्मण कौन है, समझो इस बात को. ब्राह्मण होने के लिए you have to be born in a family, but to have become a clergy you do not have to be born in a particular family. Today you decide कि ठीक है छोड़ छाड़ के मैं सफेद पहनेगा, है ना, और प्लस माइनस लगा के घूमेगा, तो ये वो हो गया. बट ब्राह्मण में थोड़े कि पहन लिया तो हो गया. वो तो फिर चेक करेगा तुमको कि कौन गोत्र है ना, कौन परिवार, कौन खानदान, वो सब पूछेगा तुमसे. कहीं गलत हो गया तो अल्लाह. सो Brahman is a special breed, I mean category of people who only exist in India. and they have given you a lot of things. So first understand the Brahman, and Brahman can be understood only in relation with the king. बहुत ध्यान से समझना इसको, because this is important for anybody who has sociology optionals. Okay? King and the Brahman. Who is a king? Who is a king? A king is a corrupt man, and he is compelled to, he is forced to give dan of land under Purta Dharma to people. You understand? Please remember, he does not have cash. But also remember, he has a dream, he has a desire. Desire of becoming Chakravarti Samrat. Also, he wants to increase the state revenue without investing a single penny. Matlab, he is that person who wants to clear UPSC without preparation. State revenue. Now the point is, if he has no cash, he has the desire of being a Chakravarti and he has a state revenue to increase, why would he give a dan? There are two reasons for it. Reason number one, a Brahman is the only person who can give him one thing which nobody else can give. That is legitimacy. Brahmans are great storytellers. They will prove you who you are more than you know about yourself. They will tell you that in your previous birth, you were none other than Narad. And they may also prove you that how you are connected with Prabhu Shri Ram, how your 48th generation came out of Ram. Suddenly, your chest becomes turgid. After all, they are giving you a legitimacy. You become important. There is another important thing. But to understand point number two, you have to go to the Brahmins first. Brahmins by definition is a sage. He is a good man actually. If you go by the scriptures, there is no one better than a Brahman. After all, he is a wanderer and he has no desire at all. इससे बढ़िया आदमी नहीं है. He is a wanderer. He is doing everything for you. He is a good man. If you go by the definition of a Brahman, he is a wanderer. So when you wonder, what is one thing that you have which nobody else have? You are the Chalta Phirta encyclopedia. You are a knowledge source. Of what? Of land, soil, climate, irrigation methods. In other words, the Brahman has the second thing which nobody else has, the knowledge of agricultural production. In other words, only he is capable of increasing the state revenue without cash. You understand? He is actually required by you. If you have this, you are going to be better. So it is actually in the favor of the Raja to bring a sage to his realm and convince him कि Prabhu, stay with me. I will give you a Brahmade. Kindly stay, sir. So imagine a Raja tells the Brahman, kindly stay with me. So he is given a piece of land, Brahmade. You see what changed sociologically in a Brahman? क्या हुआ यहाँ पर? Brahman till the time he was a sage, he was a brahmachari. The time he takes a Brahmade, he becomes a sedentary Brahman. Sedentary Brahman bole to, he gets married. He now enters Grihastha ashram. So when now he has a family, when he is married, he has entered the Grihastha ashram. If anybody who has entered Grihastha ashram in a rural setting in North India, he is called a Kutumb. He has become a Kutumb. We have a similar name in South also. In South, you call it Kudumbu. So, if you are a family man in a rural setting, you are a Kutumb. ठीक है? Now you tell me, what is the only profession that he can do? तुम मान लो सिविल इंजीनियर हो, नौकरी नहीं मिल रही, तुम गांव चले गए, क्या ही कर लोगे? राजमिस्त्री बन जाओगे? Very nice. So this Brahman has settled, and the only thing that he knows is agriculture. So he becomes an agriculturist. अब आप पूछोगे, ये पूजा पाठ क्यों नहीं करता? आप पूछ सकते हो. Why does not he perform यज्ञ? भैया, no cash. मैं तुम्हारे लिए फालतू में मंत्र पढ़ूंगा. समझ रहे हो? So there is nobody to give you extra money. Anyway, you can be an agriculturist. You have a big piece of land. But was agriculture the profession of a Brahman? No. Whose profession? It was a Vaishya profession. It was the profession of a Vaishya. So can we say that Brahmins hijacked the profession of a Vaishya? है ना? So when a Brahman, a Varna, takes the occupation of another Varna, the Brahman is no more a Brahman, he becomes a Jati. You will see. When I say he is agriculturist, it does not mean he is taking the plow. He will sit. You will do the work. What do you think? The Bhumihars of this country till the land? No, they have people. क्या कर रहे हो मोहन? हड़पो और जोत लो. हड़प्पा मोहनजोदाड़ो. So you see, a piece of land given to the Brahman makes a jati within Brahmans. It's a jati. Even Brahmans will have a jati. Bhumihars of this country. Clear hai? Let's do it again. So there is a king. There is a king. There is a Brahman. Okay? This is a piece of land. You will have to draw 2 times this circle, so अपने हिसाब से बनाना. Keep space. This is the piece of land. Now, how will this king give a piece of land? How will he give? How? कैसे देगा? What is the way of choosing this piece of land? Does that mean that if the king has to increase the productivity, he can give any piece of land to him? Does that mean that the king will go and give Thar desert to the Brahman? If you give Thar desert, there is no water. बिना पानी के मर जाएगा. ब्रह्म हत्या is महापाप. जितने का बाबू उतने का झुंझुन्ना. समझ रहे हो? तुम राम के अवतार तो बाद में होगे ना. पहले ऊपर जाके क्या होगा तुम्हारा? तुम तो So what you have to do is you have to choose a piece of land which is enough fertile so that it can sustain the Brahman. The Brahman is not killed. Correct? So how do you do that? You do not have cash, you will not go for survey. So what will you do is, there's a better way. You will gift cows. तुम गाय पकड़ाओगे इस आदमी को. You will gift cows. And these cows will be given, you gift a cow, a set of cows, and you give some time. You say, from sunrise to sunset, whatever piece of land the cows will graze into, that piece of land, that extent will be given to you. Intelligent Brahman, intelligent Raja. Understood? So, cow in Sanskrit is called Gau. What did the cow did? Grazed. Yatra. The cow performed yatra. Therefore, you get the word Gotra. So, therefore, the Gotra belongs to the Brahman. Gau, yatra, Gotra. Clear? Gotra. Again, the same circle. Now, what is interesting about a cow is, Whenever you leave cows, they will go and graze. Once they have started grazing, they will look for the green pastures. They will hoof, go to the green pastures, eat the grass, and they are capable of finding water. So that piece of land where the water exists is called Vastu. So now the Raja can be sure that a Brahman can make a house here because there is availability of water in this area. Now there would be no Brahmahatya. He is going to sustain himself. Pani zaruri hai. Then the other piece of land where he grazed will turn out to be Aprahat. Aprahat is that Aprahat खील. इसको उल्टा लिखता हूं, मुझे उधर जाना होगा. एक मिनट रुक जाओ, मुझे उधर का जगह चाहिए. अपराध उधर कर देता हूं, एक मिनट. मिटना भाई. हाँ, यहां लिखो खील. That piece of land where the cow grazed and hooved it, it became fallow land because the productivity gone. It's an subtle challenge to the Brahman that if you are really a sage and you were a sage, convert this into a fertile land. When a cow grazes, drinks water, then the cow goes and sits in a shaded region, no shaded place. It means the cow will also find Aprahat. Aprahat is the forest region, forested belt, forest area. You see what happened? The Raja is intelligent. The Raja, if he had to increase the state revenue, should have cleaned the forests and made it into an agricultural property. But very interestingly, Raja transferred his work to the Brahman. But Brahman is equally intelligent. So Brahman goes to the Raja. Sir, you are so great. You have been to so many wars. Yes. You are the incarnation of Ram. Yes. You have killed and defeated so many Ravana. Oh yes. So you may have many war captives. Obviously I have. And I know since you are a true Kshatriya, no war captive would be a Brahman. You have non-Brahmins in your prison. Why don't you hand it over to me? Give it to me. Give war captives to the Brahmins. What will you do? The king will ask. Nothing, sir. I will take them to the forested area. They will clean it. So who will do the work? The war captives. Why would you do the work? Because you give an offer to them. You say, I will set you free, provided you perform Vishti. You perform Vishti. If you perform Vishti, if you clear the forest, I will ensure that you do not go back to the prison. The war captives will ask, once we have cleaned it, we have performed the Vishti, what if you then take us prisoners and you put us in the jail? Brahman will say, no, nothing of that sort will happen. I will give you the right to inhabit this jungle. Once you clean it, you can stay here. Then comes the next question. Sir, we are non-Brahmins and non-Brahmins have to pay tax. So we have just cleaned it, we have just inhabited and somebody comes to take the tax. Then they will take our land and it will go. The Brahman will say, don't worry. Since you have come under me and I am a Brahman and the planet of Brahman is Jupiter and Jupiter takes one full circle in 12 years, I will ensure that you get tax exemption of one Guru year, that is 12 years. From the 13th year, once you settle well, you become a taxpayer. You see, it's a win-win situation for everybody. For the king, for the Brahman, as well as the war captives. That is how a village is sustained. That is how new regions are made. This is how new settlements are prepared. That is what the king and the Brahman has given you, this relationship. Now, as I said, something for sociologists. Yad rakhna, the Gotra is always of the Brahman to begin with. But then I will give you an example how this made a sociological change. Example. Imagine, how many of you know your Gotra? Let's take a practical example. Okay. How many of you Kashyap Gotra? Okay. Let us imagine that there was a Brahman called Kashyap. He goes to the king. He is given a piece of land. So this is the piece of land. It gets cleared. So Brahman takes the core area, the most fertile land. Then comes the Kshatriya of the war captives. Then comes the Vaishya of the war captives. Then comes the Shudra of the war captives. I'll give you an example. Kashyap Gotra, how many Brahmans here? Kashyap Gotra Brahman. Okay, so we have a Brahman from Kashyap Gotra. How many Kshatriya from the Kashyap Gotra? And how many Vaishya from the Kashyap Gotra? Exactly, I will not ask further. All of you have come to Vajiram. And I am asking you, where have you come from? So you say that I have come from Kashyap Gotra. So Gotra is your ancient address. That is where you originated from. That is sociology. Understood? So Gotra tells you whose cow shed you lived in. That is the importance of Gotra. That is why, since you were using the same product, the same milk, the same butter, marrying in the Gotra is strictly prohibited. Except Kashyap. In Kashyap's, marriage happens endogamous. If there is a Kayasth in this room, Kayasth always marry in the same Gotra. Any Kayasth here? What is your Gotra? Any Kayasth there? What is your Gotra? तुम पराशर हो, तुम्हारे में गड़बड़ है, तुम्हारा एकल्चरेशन हुआ. एनी अदर कश्यप? आप क्या कायस्थ है? कश्यप है? एग्जैक्टली, बिकॉज कायस्थ का एक ही गोत्र है, कश्यप. दे मैरी with their distant sisters and brothers. That is why I don't marry. Understood? And the last point. Before you go home and you think, yaar, hua kya? We make the same map. Here is Byzantine. Here is China. And there is the Silk Route. See, anybody, whether you go to Europe or whether you come to India, we people are very stereotypical people. We stereotype people and we are heartless people. Whether you live in Europe, I'm talking about Americans and the English people as well as Indians. For example, if I ask you, in Corona time period, who suffered the most? What would be your answer? Who suffered? Which sector suffered the most? Agriculture.
Unorganized sector.
जैसे उसमें एक दो नाम बताओ ना. पुअर, अच्छा, डेली वेजर्स, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, एनीथिंग एल्स? तो उसमें कुछ स्पेशल बता ना, और कुछ भी, बंधुआ मजदूर, फैक्ट्री वर्कर, फुटलूज वर्कर, है ना? एग्जैक्टली. यू सी, यू नेम्ड एवरीबॉडी एक्सेप्ट द रॉबर्स. Frontline workers, no. Robbers, plunderers. When people left coming on this Silk Route, they lost their jobs. Now, who would they plunder? Now, the problem is they cannot go back to Central Asia because Central Asia is steppe. Now, what do they do with the two things that they have? A, iron sword, and B, horses. They have two important things with them. अब क्या करेंगे घोड़े और तलवार का? किस में डालें? पैसा कोई लेके आ ही नहीं रहा. You do not have anybody, so wherever they could get money, they went there. For example, one set of nomads entered India from this route. This is Rajasthan and Gujarat. They entered from this route. The time period is the same 550 CE. We call them the Hunas. When they entered India, that led to the decline of the mighty Gupta Empire. So if UPSC asks, why did Gupta Empire decline? Right, no cash and the coming of the Huns. Gupta Empire declined. They just lost everything. Because they had sword and they had horses. They were much more ferocious. They entered India. But did they come India to loot? No, they came here to stay. When you stay for long, what happens? Marriage. When you stay for long at a place, you end up marrying. But the problem is, India is a place in this world where everything is defined according to the Varna system. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Whatever you do, you marry the best of the lots. तुम किसी से भी शादी कर लो. For Ved, you are simply not allowed to enter. For Ved, you are Malech. तुम Malech हो. You are an outsider, you are an unclean person, you are not allowed to be part of the Varna because you are not an Indian. See the baat. But this is the time, 550 CE, which is not the time period of Ved. It is the time period of Puran. And Puran has a formula that can make you an insider. It can make you an insider. All you have to do is find a Brahman. Find a Brahman and give him Hiranya Garbha Dan. Perform Hiranya Garbha Dan, where you have to gift gold, golden womb, Garbha, to the Brahman. Now the Brahman will put his hand over your head, will recite certain mantras, and you will become a person part of the Varna system. अब इसको ऐसे समझो. Understand it like this. That today UPSC announces that bring money, take a post. So what would you like to choose? Indian Postal Services? No? So you would not like to become a Shudra. Would you like to take Indian Account Services? Would you like to take Indian Police Services? Would you like to take Indian Administrative Services or Police Services? Administrative. But the problem is, Brahmins will not allow you to become Brahmins. This door is closed. The offer is only till IPS officer. So the only thing that you are left with is Kshatriya. जब बनना ही है तो क्षत्रिय बनो. जब पैसा लग ही रहा है. देख मेरे भाई, अगर शादी करनी हो matrimonial.com से ही, तो 6 फुट ही ढूंढना. You understand? जब हमें करना ही है तो हम एक गोरा चिट्ठा लड़का ढूंढे. हाँ, फिर उसमें सब कुछ होना चाहिए ना, कि एलोन मस्क भी चाहिए, स्पेसशिप भी उड़ाता हो, ट्रिलियनर हो. जब अरेंज मैरिज की बात आ जाए, ऐसे मत करना कभी, लेकिन फिर भी द पॉइंट हियर इज दैट इफ यू आर गिवन अ चॉइस विथ मनी, व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल यू इज दैट यू वुड लाइक टू गो विद द बेस्ट चॉइस available, and the best choice is to become a Kshatriya. But do you think that everybody is capable of paying the money to the commission? Or does everyone have the money? Obviously not. So the one who can become an insider is a rich Hun. Only the rich Huns can become this. But what about the poor Huns? What about the poor people? They cannot become one, because they do not have the money to give you gold. Understood? They do not have the money. So what about those people? Bana liya? What about those people? So first ask yourself this question. Do you require poor Huns? Do you require poor Huns? If the answer is yes, who is the one who requires the Huns most? The rich Huns. The rich Huns are Huns because they are rich, because there are poor Huns. If you are a leader, if you are a mass leader, there has to be a mass. If you are a youth leader, there has to be a youth behind you. Otherwise, how can you be a youth leader? You understand what I'm saying? So if you have ever been a part of elections and politics in your college, if you do not have 5 Bahi Khata accounts and many people on bike behind you, you are no Yuva Neta. You have to have a strength. The rich Huns require poor Huns. But the poor people, they do not have money. So what is the thing that Huns will do? Let us consider them rich Huns. They would ensure that the poor Huns come to enter India after they first come in. First you become there, then you put your people at the right positions, no? So what is the currency of the state? Because rich Huns will make a kingdom. They are Kshatriyas now. So what is the currency of the state? What is the currency of the rich Huns? Because they are obviously not going to put money for you. They are not going to invest gold for you. The only currency of the state is, always remember, is called a myth. All the government of India has to do is release a white paper, Gazette of India. Alright, और उसमें बस एक नाम लिखना है तुम्हारा और बगल में लिखना है Indian Administrative Services. That sheet makes you administrative officer, not UPSC exam. Gazette of India. You understand what I'm saying? One sheet, and that is the role of the myth. So remember, myth is always written for a purpose. And what is the purpose? Legitimacy. Legitimacy without money. बिना पैसे के तुमको अंदर लाना है तो आप कहानियां लिखना शुरू करते हो. Myth making is a process. It's a political process. Understood? Now what is the myth? You create a myth. You say once upon a time there was a sage. It's a myth. So do not ask me when did this happen, because it does not follow timeline. It defies time. Myth always defies time. So do not ask me when did this happen. Parshuram killed the Kshatriyas of the world. So when he killed the Kshatriyas of the world, for a very long time, there was a big gap in the Varna system. There was no Kshatriya. There was Brahman, Vaishya and Shudra. So Parshuram kills all the Kshatriya. All the Brahmans got scared. The scared Brahmans went to a sage. His name was Vashisht. And they told him that Sahab, the Kshatriyas are dead. How will we protected? Asur will come and kill us. So Vashisht said, don't worry, I will do something about it. So what he did, he prepared a fire altar. Therefore, in Hindi we call it Agni Kund. From here comes this sociological theory called Agni Kund theory. Alright, an Agni Kund was prepared. He started putting, he was a good sage, so he started worshipping. He did all his rituals. From this Agni Kund came out 4 men. Pratihar, Parmar, Chahman and Solanki. These 4 men came out of the fire pit. Then Vashisht said, I want you to do one thing. Go and marry the most powerful clans of this country so that the sons produced from your marriage will protect this country. Okay? You remember I told you hymns came with horses and iron sword. These 2 things were brought. So what did they do? There are male and females. Huns will have male and females. These 4 ended up marrying the females of the Huns tribe also. They married others also. They married Huns also. When they married these females who came from outside, the sons that were produced. पहले तो ये समझो कि लड़का किसका है? Whose boy? Ours. लड़की किसकी? उनकी. तो तुम कौन हुए? बाराती. समझ रहे हो? लड़का अपना है. So you are बाराती. अनुलोम marriage. लड़का अपना है. रोहित शर्मा is marrying a lady who is not a Brahmin. She is below. No. Rohit Sharma is upper in the Varna category. He is getting married to a lady. I do not know her name. Whatever the name is. So he is getting married. From that marriage, whatever children would be produced will give you clans, because they will get, no, clan, they will marry, they will have clans. The total number of clans are 36. These 36 clans would be called Rajputs. Emergence of Jati. Emergence of Jati. अब एक सवाल दिमाग में आता है, जो सही सवाल है और जो लड़कों के दिमाग में आया कि ये लड़के सिर्फ चेयर लगाने के लिए. What about the male members of the Huns community? ये क्या करेंगे? सिर्फ डब्बा बजाएंगे और चेयर लगाएंगे, ड्रम पीटेंगे. इनको भी तो शादी करनी है. अब लड़कों के साथ क्या होता है? They do not wait for the best, they wait for the first. I mean, जो भी प्यार से बात कर ले. नहीं, झूठ नहीं है, पूछ लो तुम दोस्तों से. तो क्या हुआ? Males entered, the Hun males entered, they could not wait. So as they entered from Rajasthan and Gujarat. There they saw Indian nomads. बोले यही करते हैं, छोड़ना, बाकी देखें. So as they entered, Rajasthan and Gujarat has many Rabadi community, Gujar community. There are many communities there. They are basically tribal communities. So the male members of the Hun community ended up marrying the Indian nomads. लड़की किसकी? अपनी. लड़का किसका? उनका. So we are waiting for the Barati to arrive. But remember, कुछ भी है, लड़की तो nomad ही है ना. मतलब लड़का उनका विराट कोहली, लड़की अपनी शर्मा. You understand? This is pratilom marriage. All right. कोहली है, उसकी शादी अनुष्का शर्मा से होती है, अपनी है. From here the children would, whoever the children, when they will have children, तुम चाहे कितनी भी नाक रगड़ लो, you will never be called a Rajput. You are not even called part of this structure. You are given names like Jats and Gujars. So Jats and Gujars are not included in the Rajput clan. Today I end this lecture here on the note by telling you a myth which the state wants us to know. State, that's a myth. In the next lecture I will tell you what really happened. In the next lecture we will discuss who really these Rajputs are. So this is the myth. Next class is the reality. चलो जाओ, मजे करो.